Understanding psychology can be immensely helpful to dungeon masters. The human mind uses mental shortcuts, called heuristics, to help it make sense of the world and survive. There's been plenty of research on how role-playing games can improve human psychology, largely focusing on how D&D can help with academics, empathy, moral reasoning, trauma, and team building. But there has been very little research on how psychological insights can help improve role-playing games like D&D. If we want to harness the power of psychology in our games, I think the best place to start is with dopamine. Dopamine is a chemical messenger that our body uses to help us think and plan, but it's also what makes us feel excited. Games rely heavily upon dopamine. If it's not present, you're probably not having fun. Dopamine is going to function best when something is challenging but not overwhelming, easy to make sense of, and novel. Let's start with that first one, challenging but not overwhelming. Vygotsky and others showed that people learn and perform their best when things challenge them and build on their prior skill sets. But don't overwhelm them. Start with basic monsters that just deal damage until your players have learned or mastered their own abilities or group tactics. Then introduce more complex baddies. Video games do this particularly well. They do it through tutorials. However, in D&D, you can do it through intentional encounters designed to teach particular skills. Too little stress isn't good either, however. Dopamine will fade if players don't feel challenged. Really what we're looking for is a Goldilocks zone. Not too hard, not too easy, just right. The second rule is to make things make sense. Truth be told, this is largely about what not to do in your games. As already mentioned, humans' brains use mental shortcuts to minimize the amount of strain that they endure and to help them process information quicker. For example, most people like working towards goals in a linear fashion. In the river crossing problem and the Tower of Hanoi, you need to sometimes work backwards in order to make progress on the puzzle. That's why most people fail at these tasks or take a very long time to complete them. Dungeon masters can learn from this principle by establishing a somewhat linear road in their own story. Bouncing back and forth between towns will be less cognitively pleasing than a journey that keeps hitting new milestones. The same is true of themes. Researchers have shown that by violating thematic expectations, they can upset people. Usually you can do this by simply twisting a concept that they already have in their heads, such as changing the color of a playing card. But interestingly, viewing surreal art does the exact same thing. This can work in small doses. Consider the gibbering mouther, for instance. That's as close to surrealism as you can get in D&D. But if you build a whole world based on these ideas, like the RPG Invisible Sun does, your players won't know what to expect at all, and this can be disorienting. The last rule to remember is that variety is truly the spice of life. The quickest way to kill dopamine is to keep things the same. Keep switching things up in your game. New monsters, new locations, new puzzles. There are plenty of other rules that I didn't go over today, like avoiding roll-under systems because people associate magnitude with success, or limiting the number of things people have to remember to 7 plus or minus 2. But the main point of this video was to remind everyone that we should keep human psychology at the top of our minds when we are coming up with rules for our games. Mechanics are only as good as the fun that they can create at the table. So learn about how humans process information if you want to make your game a memorable one.